Tom Lawrence has been made available for transfer and Championship clubs are chasing after his signature. A lot of talk will be about whether Derby County a former club is, and in my opinion we certainly won't be after the 31-year-old former Wales international. Over the course of the last few years he's struggled a lot with injury, only playing I believe 36 games. Since joining Rangers in that summer, well, it's 56 games, my apologies, but it's one of those for me where someone of the calibre of Tom Lawrence, and we can see it with a player like Louis Barry, will never choose to join Derby County, and there's a range of different reasons for it. Players like Tom Lawrence, players like Louis Barry will not be given the opportunity to thrive and to show their talent and prove it to those in the Premier League or to those teams at the top end of the division like they should be able to, because it's so structured, it's so work-based, and there's no sort of space for creative freedom with Derby County. And a lot of people will argue about Paul Warne's style, and that's something which we can talk about all day on this channel. Now obviously a lot of you will know who Tom Lawrence is. He made 185 appearances for Derby County, 37 goals and 25 assists. Obviously he can play all across those front four positions, in the 10, on the left, right, and as a striker. We've seen it all ourselves, and we've seen the ability that Tom Lawrence has. Now in my opinion I believe he's going to head down to Coventry, where I think he'll have a really good impact playing under a former manager in Frank Lampard. But for me, the deal with a player like Tom Lawrence is they need that ability to have creative freedom, to be able to pick up the ball and chase after defenders with the ball and make things happen in that capacity. We saw it time and time again as Derby County fans, and obviously many people are going to say, well, we didn't see it enough, and you'll probably see the Tom Lawrence shirt in the background of this screen. And yes, I am a massive fan of Tom Lawrence. Ultimately, yes, I understand what he did on the drink drive incident was wrong. Completely agree with everybody who talks about that. That isn't up for discussion. But he's a player who I think really turned it around, and he grew up in that season of administration where he was the captain. He put the team on his shoulders from time to time during that season, and ultimately, if we had have stayed up, he would have been the main reason why, because unbelievable player, and he carried us through many games. A big one that I can think of is the Sheffield United game where he scored that wonderful goal where he picked up the ball just over the halfway line, beat Bogle, beat another man, beat Bogle again, and then slotted it past the goalkeeper. There might have been another man in there as well that he beat. And for me, someone who can do that is really important to any team in this division, especially one of those down the bottom end of the division. You look at some of the teams around us and they've all got players they can sort of lean on, where I don't think Derby County have that. You look at like a Stoke, I don't necessarily think they have a particular player they can lean on. You look at a Pompey, I don't really think they have a player they can lean on. But if you look at Luton, they've got the likes of Carlton, Morris, Adebayo, players like that, who can really make a real impact when it's their day. And then you look at someone like Oxford, who's their man that they can lean on, but they've really turned it around over recent weeks. And it all comes down to Championship know-how and Championship experience. Now, someone of Tom Lawrence's calibre knows how to win games in the Championship on his own back. Obviously, he could never do it as a one-man band. We know that. But his ability with workers around him could certainly make that happen. And we saw it when he played as that number 10 or the false 9 in a midfield with the likes of Graham Shinney, Max Bird, Jason Knight, ratting around and winning the ball. And for me, we don't get these types of players anymore. I don't think we've had a Tom Lawrence type of player. Well, you can maybe say David McGoldrick was that type of player where could ultimately win a game on his own. If he wanted to, right, he could have won us every game in League One. If he was fit every game and was really on it, he'd have won us every single game. Now, ultimately, that's one of the reasons why these players aren't playing in the Premier League, aren't playing in the Champions League and things like that. But we don't have a player who can turn it on like that. I don't think Mendes Lang can. I don't think Caden Jackson can. I don't think Marcus Harness can. Obviously, you've got Corey Blackett-Taylor, who I think possesses the ability to be able to, but has never been able to show it as a Derby County player. Now, for me, when you talk about that type of stuff, you've got to look at the style of play that we're playing in. a lot of it is wide balls and getting balls into the box. Now, for me, if you've got a bit of a maverick like Tom Lawrence, he could get the ball on the left-hand side, beat a few men and square it rather than cross it. And then you open up yourselves for much better opportunities. I think if you go and look at the chances Derby have created across the course of the season, and even those big ones that we've missed over the course of this season so far, a lot of them are bouncing balls, they're headers, they're volleys, some really, really difficult chances. Now, ultimately, a player like Tom Lawrence could finish those chances. Of course he could. But ultimately, it's still a difficult chance for him. Volleys are difficult chances for even your Cristiano Ronaldos, your Messis, your Mbappes, your Haalands, your Bellinghams. They're difficult chances to score at any level of football. Now, if you can create those along the floor shooting opportunities, or those types of situations, you get those opportunities which are unbelievably better than what we're creating right now. And I think that's the major problem with what we're doing with Paul Warne, and it's why a player like Tom Lawrence, a player like Louis Barry, probably doesn't feel like Derby County is the right place to be for their development. Now, over the course of the last few days, we've obviously spoke about Matt Clark and potentially Oscar Frullo, all these players who could potentially come in. Now, we're obviously hearing that Erin Cashin could be on the way out over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours as well. But obviously that's got to progress with Brighton before he can actually move on. And it's one for me where you're losing those types of players like an Erin Cashin. We lost Max Bird in the summer. We lost Jason Knight the summer before. We lost Didsey the summer before. We lost technical beasts in Conor Hourihane and Corey Smith. Conor Hourihane, in my opinion, lost his legs, which was completely fine. I agreed with that decision. Corey Smith, a player who could dictate a game, ultimately didn't quite have the legs anymore, but could get on the ball and make things happen. And that's what we're missing at Derby County. We don't have one who can sit at the base of the midfield. We don't have someone who can sit at the tip of the midfield. And we don't have either of them on the wings, because Mendes-Lang doesn't really beat his man anymore to create those crossing opportunities. Caden Jackson doesn't do it. Corey Blackett-Taylor did it, but obviously he's now picked up that injury. It'll be really interesting to see how long he's out for. There's obviously rumours that Kane Wilson and Dejon Brown are out now until the end of the season, which obviously then means that Joe Ward is going to be sticking about despite his injury issues, because he's going to have to be back up to Ryan Niambi, who we know over the course of the last 2 years has picked up some two quite serious injuries. So obviously back sort of to the Tom Lawrence, the Louis Barrys of the world, and I even talk about a player like Kenzo Holdmine and think that they just don't get the opportunities in this type of football, in this team, to be able to show what they're truly capable of. Now, some people will say, well, you would see the magic anyway. Now, for me, I think you do see a lot of good from Kenzo, a player like Kenzo. But ultimately, because other players aren't reading the same situation he's reading, don't have the same IQ that he has in relation to a football pitch, it then looks like he's made a poor pass or he's made a poor decision, which ultimately I don't always believe is the case. You go back to when we had Tom Lawrence, Ravel Morrison playing as that front two, and then Malcolm Ebiowei on the right. Those three had the football intelligence that was unreal. Unbelievable football IQ. Even Luke Plange you can add into that, right? Now, ultimately, Luke Plange has gone on to nothing. Malcolm Ebiowei's gone on to nothing. I don't think Ravel Morrison has a club, and obviously Tom Lawrence has struggled with injury over the last few years. But they had that IQ. They created some amazing opportunities because of the IQ they had. And you saw it with Ravel Morrison time and time again, where he gets absolutely, he'd get so angry about players not reading what he was trying to do. And even as fans, you could get angry because you knew it was the right decision. We don't have them players now where a Kenzo makes a spectacular pass and then you've got someone else that reads it or acknowledges it. And we've got no one in the team that does that at this position, and that is what we need. And it's going to be interesting to see if those players do come in. Obviously, sitting here right now, it's the 27th at 8 p.m. It'll be interesting to see what does happen tomorrow. If Matt Clark does sign today, there'll be a video out later on discussing that, and there will be other videos coming, of course. Obviously, there's going to be one where I discuss the media, and I really want to hear your thoughts on this, because I think there's a big problem with Derby County, a big problem with the media situation at the moment. We'll have to see what happens with that. Make sure you check out that video either later on today or tomorrow by hitting that subscribe button, turning on that notification bell. I'll catch you in the next one.